Guys, I'm going to try and do this video without crying because I just got something very, very special to me in the mail and I want to share it with you guys. Now, when you see this, many of you are going to have a few questions that I will answer immediately, but not in very much detail because you should watch my other videos to know a little bit more about me. But without further ado, boom, this book called Kirawareru Yuki, which translates to The Courage to Be Disliked. This book changed my life. So I can see the two question marks popping up over a lot of you guys' heads. One, is this guy a fluent Japanese speaker? Why did he get a book in Japanese? And two, why did he buy a book that he apparently already read? Answer to question number one. Yes, I speak Japanese fluently. I have the highest certification of the Japanese language placement test. And yes, I can read, write, speak, and listen very fluently. Two, yes, I bought a book that I already read before because originally I read this book on digital on my iPhone, but I wanted the physical copy so that I could hold it, so that I could flip through it, so that I could decorate it on my desk, and ultimately so that I could support the author whose name is Ichiro Kishimi. Ichiro Kishimi is a professor here in Kansai, Japan at the University of Kyoto, and he wrote this book centered around Adlerian psychology. Now, that sounds scary to a lot of people, I'm sure, Adlerian psychology and, things to do with psychology and philosophy. But this book is written in very, very, very simple terms. This book is written, I don't know if I'm saying this right in English, but the way they say it in Japanese is taiwa shiki, or taiwa kei shiki, I can't remember. That shows you how fluent I am. But basically in conversation style. This book is a conversation between a wise man and a young man. And it talks about Adlerian psychology. Now, what is Adlerian psychology and how did it change my life? Adlerian psychology comes from a psychologist from Austria named Alfred Adler. And I think he is up there with the big three, who are Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. I think he's the third one. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But of his time, I think he was a part of the big three of the psychologists / philosophers of his time. And his claims, which are the springboard for this book, this is kind of how the book starts off. Alfred Adler claims that one, this world is very, very simple. And two, anybody can become happy in this very moment in time. And those are two big claims. We think that the world is very complicated and we think that, you have to put in a lot of effort to become happy. But Alfred Adler doesn't believe that at all. And I'm not going to go into great detail because I want you to read this book. If I can describe how this book made me feel after reading it, one, I would say a weight was just lifted off of my shoulders. And after reflecting on a lot of the things of this book, one day, just thinking about this book, tears just started rolling down my eyes. It really pierced my heart and changed my life. Because what it did for me in particular, it got my mind off of seeking approval from others and shifted my mind toward making contributions to others, even if it didn't go recognized, even if nobody told me thank you, even if I got no praise or reward for it. Because Alfred Adler says we shouldn't find fulfillment and approval that we get from others, but we should find fulfillment knowing that we are contributing to the people around us and to our community. And when you shift your mind toward that, life does become much simpler and you do become much happier because you know that you are of value just by existing. You know, my son is of value just by existing to me. He doesn't have to be hyper successful. He doesn't have to get the best grades. Just him being my son and just my wife being my wife, they are of value to me, and I wouldn't have it any other way. You know, if my son does get, the best grades in his class, wonderful. If my son does become hyper successful, wonderful. But if he gets like straight C's, maybe even some D's, but still manages to pass school, that's fine too. He's still my son and I love him. If he just lives a normal life in a medium sized to small house with a, oldish car with a regular looking wife, that's fine too, even if he lives a super normal life. Either way, I don't value his accomplishments. I don't value his faults. I value him just because he is my son. And life becomes much simpler than that. I know that parents try to put sugar, spice, and everything nice and some chemical X in their children to make them, hyper successful or super smart or overachievers, but I'm not going to do that with my son. He can just exist and I'll love him regardless. Now, I'm going to say something that's a little bit controversial depending on who you ask, but I think this book changed my life more than 12 Rules for Life. The book written by the Canadian psychologist slash, ex-professor at the University of Toronto, Jordan B. Peterson. That book did change my life a lot, but this book changed my life even more because it did provide me with the immediate happiness that Alfred Adler said that we can all have. I felt much mentally better after reading this book. So I strongly recommend it to all of you guys, whether you read the physical copy, digital, or listen to an audiobook, or even just, study up on it with some YouTube videos. So that's what I strongly recommend. Now, one last thing that I want to say. Should I say this? Yeah, let me just go ahead and say this. Alfred Adler, and this is something that I'll talk about in later videos because I'm still thinking about it myself. Alfred Adler also made the claim that there is no such thing as trauma. Now, I know that you guys are hearing that and like, what the heck? How could he say that? I was thinking the same thing too. I'm like, bro, you got some explaining to do if you want to make such a bold claim that there is no such thing as trauma. Once again, guys, read the book and figure it out for yourself. I'm still thinking about whether trauma does exist or whether it doesn't exist. But read the book for yourself. It's very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Some people get mad when you say that there's no such thing as trauma, but I really want you to read this book because it will change. I will say this, it has changed my perspective on the idea of trauma. And this is where Carl Jung and Alfred Adler just go in completely opposite directions. Because Carl Jung, he talks about the origin of people's lives being the fuel for their goals. Sorry, I said that completely wrong. Carl Jung said people do the things that they do based on past experiences. Alfred Adler says people do the things that they do based on the goals that they have in the future. So Carl Jung, past experience explains why you are the way you are. Alfred Adler, your goals explain why you are the way you are. Very, very, I don't want to say polar opposites, but they go in completely different directions when it comes to explaining why people do the things that they do. Read the book, guys. I can't stress it enough. It is so simple to understand. I am not a native speaker of Japanese, but this book was so easy to understand. Even in a I can't speak English, guys. Even in a language that is not my native one. You guys might be questioning whether even English is my native one based on how much I'm tripping over my words. But even in a language that is not my native language, I read this book and it was so easy to understand. It was like the book was reading itself to me. The information just flows into your head. And if you guys read it in your native language, you'll feel the same way. So yeah, guys, please read the book. I'm also excited to read the sequel, Shiawase ni Naru Yuki. This book is called The Courage to Become Happy. So we got Kirawareru Yuki, the courage to be disliked, and Shiawase ni Naru Yuki. Sorry guys, my nose is so itchy. I know that you guys are like, what is this guy doing? He's trifling, just touching his nose. So yeah, this book is Shiawase ni Naru Yuki, the courage to become happy. Strongly recommend the books. I can't recommend this too much because I haven't read it, but I'm very excited. This is a direct sequel to this book. So like I said, it's a conversation between a wise man and a young man, and their conversation continues in this book. Gosh, my nose is itchy. Spring, guys. The pollen is killing me. Pray for me. But yeah, guys, that's all I wanted to talk about. Let's explore, whether trauma exists in the next video. I really want to talk about that because that's still something that I'm thinking about. Anyways, guys, I love you so much. Please stick around for my next video. Peace.